ministers are called progressively and sometimes circumstantially, dramatically. You can always think about Moses and the burning bush. And others are coded for a particular assignment. And when I think of being coded for a particular assignment, I think of Esther for such a time as this. For me, I would say it's a combination of all those.
Well, I can say that right from my tender age, I loved serving in the church. And what I can talk about more is during my youthful days, that season or that particular time, we had several ministers who really supported us as young people. And we were given opportunities to express our talents, our area of calling. And by, I got to realize that yes, God is calling me into ministry. Not really that I would say that right back I could say that I was being called to be a minister, but I could feel my joy and my everything is in the church, and so I desired to serve.
Ever since I was young in terms of when I received Christ, I was really young. But later when I joined the secondary school, I was involved in the Christian Union, and at times I was given leadership positions. And then when I went to college, I was also involved in the Christian Union. There we did a lot of mission, and it was really an eye-opener. Later, when I started working, after I had served, I have worked I had my own business, yes. So when I worked for about 4 years, and by then I was actively involved in the church, because now I was a youth, I was a young adult. And even in church, I was given positions to become the chair of the youth and to lead the service. And I was also given an opportunity to preach. I used to preach, though, of course, I had not gone to any theological school. But after working for about 4 years, I started feeling like there is something that is missing in me. I wasn't really getting a fulfillment. Though yes, I was earning some money, but I wasn't getting the fulfillment or the satisfaction. I was feeling there's a void in me. There's a space that something needs to fill that space. So I remember telling my dad that I feel like I want to go back to school. Then my dad used to love education. So every opportunity that any of my siblings would say that they want to go back to school, to him it was an opportunity that he really embraced. He didn't mind how much he would spend on us as long as we educated. So what he told me, just go and think, what is it that you want? And remember, I had gone through a training, a different field, but now it's like I want to change. And I thought my dad would oppose, but he didn't have a challenge, a problem.
I first came to Kenya February 14th, 1999, a few months before the Nairobi bombing. I came as a Presbyterian USA mission worker. I was assigned to Rabati Teachers College through the efforts of the late, very Reverend Bernard Muindi. I was a tutor there, and while I was teaching in Rabati, God called me to be the first white woman to be ordained in the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. And then I was transferred to Alliance Girls High School as the chaplain.
And specifically, you get to know that God has called you through conviction. And when that call is clarified and confirmed by other people. Samuel's call was clarified by Eli. In my case, my call was confirmed first by my mother. Growing up as a young child, I would go out to play with other children. And anytime my mother came looking for me and she didn't find me in the company of those children, she knew where to find me. She would always go to the church, and that is where she would find me. And in her own account, she said that is how she sensed that God was calling me to serve him.
I had a call right from primary school where I felt that I wanted to serve God. But when I went to secondary school, I joined the Christian Union, although I had come from a Catholic background. And in the Christian Union, I served in different offices as a Christian Union secretary and other activities that take place in the school. After that, I joined Kenyatta University College, the then Kenyatta University College of Nairobi Education Department, where I trained as a teacher and graduated in 1984. I was posted to the Auto Teachers College as a lecturer, and I started serving with the students, and I could see that there was a limitation on the Christian nurturing of the students. And I felt God calling me to join the ministry so that I would be able to serve the college. I would also serve with the students. And that is when now I started feeling like I want to join the ministry. But since I had not become a full member of the Presbyterian Church, I was confused. I didn't know which way to go. And I waited for quite some time, and then later I became a member of the Church of Torch, started teaching Sunday school, and also serving in the youth. I also served in the guild. And that is now when I was able to go for interview for the Holy Ministry, and I was taken immediately to Presbyterian University in the year 2000.
Well, my calling came quite early, I would say, in childhood. Well, mine was quite a bit dramatic. Yeah, because it started with visions and, you know, waking up at night and moving actually literally out of the house and being asked, where are you going? At 5 years, 6 years, and I say I'm going to preach. So that's the beginning, that's the earliest I can trace my call, and I grew with it. Of course, it grows with clarity as you move on and as you continue maturing, and more so as I started serving in church from church school, youth, and all that, it became more clear. But I would say in childhood it was an early calling.
As I was thinking, I actually didn't know what is this that I want, but I was feeling there's something that I want. So later I remember receiving a letter that I was to intimate in the church on the side of the youth. So the letter was about a ministry, anybody who want to go to theological school so that they can be ordained as a minister. To me, that was something very new. But before that letter, there is a minister who came to our church. Her name is Reverend Leanne Degwa. She's currently a Presbyterian minister, but she's ahead of me in terms of ordination. We had a convention in our church, and she was invited to come and preach. So when I looked at her, I said, wow, you mean there are clergy women? To me, it was a surprise. I had never seen one. So I admired her, I looked at her, and then she preached, and she's also a singer, so she also sang. So that was a little bit earlier. So when I connected that then with this, and I say, oh, kumbe, this is where one gets an opportunity to become a minister. imagine when after I've done that announcement, my dad came and asked me, did you hear an announcement that was made in the church today about somebody who desires to go to a theology? I told him yes. But I told him, yani halafu, yani so he told me, do you know we also have clergy women? I told him, I've only seen one, I've not seen any other. Somehow, I think I just thought, yani, what is this? What is this that my dad is telling me?
At first, when you receive the call, you probably have never seen any other person like that. So because a call is very hard to explain, because it's an inner conviction, you know, like the normal saying in Kenya goes, if you know, you know. So you know you're called. It's a deep conviction that you need to serve God, but how you express that and how you also convince people so that they can also know and agree with you and help you along the way, that's a bit of a challenge. And I think one of the hardest questions that you're asked during the interviews is, can you describe your call? It's very hard to explain what you feel, what the conviction that you have inside of you. But as I said, it came quite early, so that by the time I cleared school, and I did that quite early, I started school quite early, and I didn't stop. So at 16, I'm out. I've already done Form 4, I'm out. And I still have this heavy burden to serve God. But how? But thank God, because as I grew up in my adolescence, I'd seen one minister. May the Lord continue resting her soul. She's Reverend Grace Odupoi, and she belonged to our presbytery then, Gong Hills. And she's the first woman I saw in the full, gowns, in the full clerical wear of a Presbyterian minister, and she's a woman. And so she validated my call and my burden, and I knew, yeah, so they are women, and this is what I would want to do. So fast forward, you're 16, you're out, you feel called to serve God in the ordained ministry, but no one around you has that kind of a calling. And so your friends are going on, with college and other things in life. First of all, you're too young, you don't even have an identity card and all those things, and you've started applying. So it wasn't easy convincing people or even family. Of course, they supported me all through, but it wasn't easy for them to understand really, what am I up to? I remember receiving, offers to go for teaching, to go for nursing. I think I was this nice girl who looked like I would serve, but maybe not in this way.
I would say that I got the first call after Form 4, but I never took it seriously. I thought it was a joke. I did not think I would ever end up in ministry. So I went about doing other things, but the real call came in 2009. Yeah, 2009 it was during, there's a holiday called Kenyatta Day on the 20th of October 2009. Yeah, that's when I really felt, now this is the way. Yeah, after quite a year of soul searching, I was working in the corporate industry, but I stopped working. I abruptly stopped working in January 2009, and I could not understand why. I actually resigned. And after I resigned, I went through a period of about 9 months of soul searching, not knowing really what I wanted. I wasn't sure about the call. I wasn't even sure about my Christian walk. Yeah, but as I went through that period, I got, the Lord spoke to me, and that is when I knew this is where I was heading. That's when the call came.
When I was in primary school, I wanted to be a Catholic nun, because I looked at the Catholic nuns and the way they looked so cool with their uniforms and the way they dressed. So I wanted to be a Catholic nun. But when I get to class 6 and 7, I realized, no, I cannot be that now, because I'm in a Presbyterian church and not in the Catholic Church. I didn't know the distinction between the two churches. And so I decided to be married by a pastor, because from God, the second purest person was a pastor. to me, that is because I knew they were relating direct with God. So I wanted to be married by one of those. And again, in our family, my father being a church elder, there used to be so many ministers who were coming and even spending the night there. You remember those days, they had parishes that were so geographically, the area they covered was huge. And so they would spend nights in the elders or some other people's homes. So our home was one of those places where the ministers used to come and spend the night. And I would go and sit with them and admire them and want to hear more from them. Unfortunately, I didn't get married to one, I became one.
When I was in Form 2, I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. And in Form 3, I was chosen to be the treasurer of the Christian Union. Towards the end of Form 3, I was convinced completely that I needed to go and serve. So I went, talked to the elders. They told me that I have to wait until I finished Form 4. I finished Form 4, went back to them. They said, we heard that you passed well to go for Form 6. So you first of all go. Of course, for me, when I look back to this, they were like, what are you talking about? So I went back, I went to Form 5, Form 6. And when I finished, that was back 1988, I went back to them again. I told them, yes, I finished. And I got 2 principals and 1 substint, which was a minimum requirement for university. And they said, now, wait, we don't know how to deal with that. They will know what to do. Fortunately, that time, a minister came to our outreach, because I grew up in an outreach. Before it was an Edeni. So this minister came because it had been upgraded to an outreach. So when he came announcing that the church was recruiting men and women to Ore ministry. And so when he did that, I went and shared my dream with him, or my conviction with him, and he encouraged me. When he encouraged me, I had now to go and share that with my parents, who are now newly baptized and not very keen with the church. And my father was not ready for that. In our neighborhood, there is the Catholic monastery where the nuns would come, and it would be a big function when they are coming in for the first time. So to my father, his daughter was going to become a nun. He was not for it, and he refused with all the strength. But the minister was very calm and very keen with it, trying to convince him. He definitely saying he was not going to be involved about that.
I used to serve God in church school and also in youth. And I was that lady who was very committed in everything, like in camp, fellowship, keshas. I used to be very active during those days in my early childhood. So in the process, I remember it was back when I finished Form 4 and I had attended a camp, youth camp. There is where I felt when the speakers who were invited, one of the main speakers was talking about God has purpose for us and God wants us to serve Him. So there is when I felt the inner conviction in my heart of serving God. And from that time, my service in the ministry really changed drastically. I was now fully involved in everything. And I remember one day my mom was making a fun of me and saying that you need to go and start living in church because you are all rounded in church. Everything is church, Mary, everything is church. And I think there is where I now even started attending district fellowship. And now I started sharing my calling with the other ministers. And I thank God because they guided me to where I am. It has taken the hand of God.
My call, I guess it came when I was in the youth ministry because I was a youth leader for 7 years. I was in the youth from the congregation up to the Presbyterian. And God appeared to me in a dream. And I could see him calling me and asking me, what are you waiting for? I didn't know what he was calling me to do for. But it is from there that I started feeling the urge to know more about God, and even to feel that I'm called to go and serve, such that even when I was working, I could go to work and I was not fulfilled in the job. But that joy was not there. When that came, I could not feel comfortable in my job. So I felt more comfortable when dealing with the youth, or in a fellowship somewhere, or preaching somewhere. To an extent, my mom and dad talked about it and said, I'm going to lose my job, because every other day I'm asking for permission to go here, to go there.
To be very honest, I cannot point to one day. It's been a journey. But I'll be honest and tell you that there's once in my childhood, we traveled. We used to love traveling as a family. And one point between, I think it was our home and our upcountry, our grandparents' home, I remember telling my parents, one day I want to be a minister, I want to be a pastor. Never said it again. I said it once. And after that, I really did not want to be a minister, because what I was going through as I grew, I thought I would not be a very good minister. The calling was still there. The desire to serve God was still there. But I was wondering, yes, I feel called by God to serve in the Church of Christ, particularly here in the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. However, how will I ever get to Bari? You know, I come from a hilly place, Nyeri area, and we go to different areas, up, down, mountains, flat ground. And one of my worries was, how will I ever get to the grave to bury someone? To be honest, God uses anyone and everything.
So that I may be enrolled, like I may be in the full-time ministry. It has not been an easy journey. You do interview. I have done interview almost 4 times. First time I did it back in, I think it was 2012. That is the first time I did my interview. It was not an easy journey, because you are competing with people who have done a degree. By then I had, I was still, no, I think my first interview I did it in 2009. Yes, that is the time I had completed my diploma. I had not enrolled in my degree. So during that time, we were competing with people who have a degree. So as much as I wanted to go and express my calling, I just felt that I need to tell them I have this calling, I've been called. But even before I do that, immediately I finished my Form 4, I went and met my moderator of the presbytery. And I told them that I feel I need to serve God in the full-time ministry. And by then I was very young, and they were like, maybe you don't know what you are doing, just go and allow God to work in you, allow the calling to grow, allow everything to move on. So time came. Now this now my first interview, whereby everybody that we were doing that interview with, they had completed their degree. So it was a tough interview.
I started applying in the PCA. First of all, the practice and procedure, says that you got to be 25 now. You can imagine from when I've turned 17 now, after school and all that, how long would I wait to? So it was a struggle, and I waited quite a number of years, going for interviews, and sometimes there's this Woishe, feeling like she's too young. You go back home, grow kidogo, then you come back. So I went to this on these motions a number of times until finally I got a breakthrough. And how did the breakthrough come? You know, obviously, it's very expensive to educate a minister in the church. We must acknowledge that. And so the church takes a number of ministers, say 15, 20 maybe, per class, because it's a very costly affair. And you can imagine all these people with the calling applying for those few slots. So sometimes you find that you're going in for an interview and maybe a male is more preferred than you. No rules are written, but it just happens. Maybe somebody who has less qualifications than you, but they're preferred, maybe because you're too young, or maybe you're a woman or all that, but we thank God.
One hurdle that I experienced was 2 weeks before I joined college. I had a challenge with my appendix, and I had to go for an operation. So to me, I was saying, oh no, not now. And the way I was eager to go to school, not now. But I went through the operation. The other students have already reported. I am at home 2 weeks down the line. So when I felt better, imagine my father and my mother, they brought me to school, to the college, Kikuyu. By then it was Presbyterian College at Thogoto. But that day when we were to report, my wound started having challenges again, where the operation was done. So I said, not again. I was healing. What has happened? But later I came to realize this was really an attack. So what my dad said, let's go via the hospital. If the doctor allows us to take you to school, we will. If he says we go back home, we will go. And then after some time, I said, no, I'm going to school. So when we went to the doctor, he said, okay, the wound is not really healed, but you can go to school, but ensure that at least you have taken your rest. And take this medicine, go with it. When I went to school, remember people have already started the course 2 weeks down the line, so I have a lot to catch up with. But the following day, the wound was even worse than the previous day. So what I did, I went to Kikuyu Hospital, and they looked at it. They told me, this one, we'll have to treat it every day. So every day, after classes, they would end at around 1. Then in the afternoon, I go to the hospital, while others are going to the library. Coming back, because of what they have done to the wound, I was not even able to sit. And even after the wound has healed, for those 3 years I was in college, I had a challenge of sitting down. Can you imagine? Sitting down, yet you're expected to sit as many hours as possible and study. So I remember I used to, most of the times I would even sit on the bed so that I stretch my legs, and here I am with my books. But I want to thank God, because even after having a challenge, I remember one time my dad telling me, this could be that thorn of Paul, the thorn in the flesh, something that is not going away. We used to visit hospitals because we were wondering, was it that the operation was not done right, or what has happened? So for 3 years, we kept on visiting the hospital. But I want to thank God, because down the line, after 3 years, I was able to finish my education, and I did so well. So after that, then I went for the practicals, and then the ordination came later.
One thing is that we were only 2 in our class. It was only me and another Anglican lady. And for the 4 years I was at St. Paul's, I was the only Presbyterian lady minister in college, student then. Yeah, amongst the other men that were there. So we were only two in the class. But in other classes, there were others from the Anglican Church and two from the Reformed Church. When I went to St. Paul's, I was going to meet with godly people. I was going to meet with God. And when you get there, the environment, the people, the talk, the doings of things, I almost quit. To be honest, I almost quit. But I thank one of our men, the principal then was a Presbyterian, Reverend Dr. Isaiah Muita. The wife got concerned because I missed school, I missed classes, I missed lunch, I missed dinner because my heart was so down because me, I was going to a godly place. But the things that are happening there are not in line with what I was going to do there. And so she called me to her house and we talked and she made sure I went back to class.
Yeah, after that I went to school. I took the year 2009. In 2010 I went back to school. I first wanted to wait there's a time that comes in the Presbyterian Church that people are interviewed who are taken to school. But when I interrogated myself, I was already a mother, I had young children, and I thought that may not be good for me because I would need to go and board in one of the universities. And I actually became a private student. By that time, it's good to know that being a private student in the Presbyterian Church was not very popular. And most people felt like I had lost the way. But I had heard the Lord speak. So even with the challenges, I went on in 2010. Took some time. Mostly people don't take 4 years, but I took 3 years and then graduated in 2014.
In 2006, the interesting thing is that we were the first self-sponsored students. So we finished, we were treated like all the other church-sponsored students. We were together, we were going for attachments, because we used to do 2 semesters then, the summer one. We always went out for 3 months and another month in December. So we were posted out to get some parish experience and all that. There was no difference between us and the fully church-sponsored students. But then when we finished, it's like, I don't know, the church wasn't ready yet for us, or it was like, wow, they have graduated. So it was a struggle. There was some in-between time because I think the first self-sponsor to be ordained, I think, was around 2010. So you can see from when we graduated, I think the first one maybe in 2005, and myself and others 2006. There was a gap, so there was some waiting time. So what happened during that time, I got absorbed by St. Andrews to do practicals with them. Pastoral internship with them, and I grew very much with that. At one time I was the director of youth in St. Andrews, and as I was doing that, I was applying also for further studies, and by God's grace I got taken and I went for postgraduate studies in Netherlands and came back in 2008. Then 2009 I was taken by Lavington United Church to be a youth minister. So it was while I was there that the church took me in as a student minister in the year 2010. So I trained under the minister at Loresho Church, Reverend Elias Agola, under Milimani Presbytery.
School was good, and by the way, it's good to say that I went to St. Paul's University in Limuru, and one thing I really enjoyed is the way we mingled with different people from different denominations. And above all, there's this one minister, it's only that, yes, the Lord called her home, Reverend Alpha Makinywa, who really used to celebrate us as Presbyterians. Anytime you could interact with her and she realizes that you are Presbyterian, wow, she really embraced us and she was happy that we were out there for studies. She supported us, and for sure we remember her in a great way, and we thank God that he gave us a chance to interact with her. Secondly, like for example, if I was to talk about my class, we were not so many ladies in class, but we were quite a number, especially because we had people from the Anglican Church, the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian and all that. And some of my Presbyterian classmates, we are serving together, though not in the same presbyteries, but at least we are in the ministry together. So school was good, and I'm happy to have schooled there. Yeah, I can remember somebody like Reverend Dawn Gikandi. She's currently in Kamboi Girls, and Reverend Lydia Kahiga. We worked together in a big way. We were young mothers and we are struggling with books and all that, and we used to encourage one another a lot. And well, I got ordained before her, and I saw her come through the journey of ordination, because by God's grace, we were coming from the same presbytery where I was serving as a clerk. And I walked the journey with her, so it has been a great thing.
During my training, we were very few, St. Paul's, we were very few in Corinth. We were very few in Corinth, and I mean few in terms of students, but women, we were only 5. We were 2 Presbyterian, 1 Methodist, 1 Quaker, and 1 Anglican. 1 Anglican, did I say that? I think we were only 5 women. I think basically that is now the journey that I have traveled to this level. That during now the interview process, because that is now the minister has taken me to that level, but there were now interviews from the parish to the presbytery to the national level. When we were doing the interviews, I think it was very different for those of us that were girls, because I was a girl that time, I was not married. Those that were girls and those that were men, it was very different. And for girls, you were like to give a proof that we don't have boyfriends. We are going to keep our girlhood, and it would be a very thorough kind of questions, sometimes questions that could be offensive. But we, at the end of the day, made it, went in the training. When I was in St. Paul's, when I was still in St. Paul's, I had not met a Presbyterian who was a minister. I had not met one. Yet there were now those that had been ordained before. But physically, we had never met. During my internship or attachment, that's when I was taken to Reverend Ruth Modhoni, where I stayed with her for 2 months and then came back.
So in the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, PCEA, as people know our church to be, after we verify the call, and there is a whole process to verify this call, there are interviews done, a lot of things are done to verify this call. Education is very vital. In fact, if you note, with most of our churches, there will be a church, there will be a school. No wonder I'm here serving schools, and there might be a hospital. So we value health, both spiritual and physical. We value education, both spiritual and the usual school system. And we value spirituality based on the Word of God. So all that put together, my challenges with finding ordination and going to learn, I had to go to school. I had to study. It was not a free ticket that you just come. So I went through the usual system. In fact, I avoid that term, but the usual schools. I did not even attend any specialized schools. So I did my primary learning, I did my high school. I even took time to study a few other things, including sign language, before I went to the university. I was in St. Paul's University, Limuru. where I did my Bachelor of Divinity, and I finished, and so I had to study. Then after that, of course, all the interview processes, and for that qualification to be put there. So education is very vital, and I support education, and that has been part of the core business of being a minister. In as much as the call is there, we need you to know what you're telling people about, of course, based on the Word of God.
I was ordained 2004. I was licensed 2003. And I've been serving Christ ever since. Christ calls all of us, men and women. And being in Africa, Kenya specifically, this has been an ongoing situation. Knowing what the African tradition is, that women have come a long way, but they have a long way to go to feel many times equal with men in parishes, in presbyteries, and even on the national level.
So my second interview, I did it in 2012. And it was not also an easy interview. But this time I had that high hopes because already I have completed my degree. So I thought that this is now another opportunity God has given me, and I know I'll go through. So let come that time of interview. That was the most challenging time in my life because we were to do the interview on Friday, but Thursday night, our last-born daughter was admitted at Avenue Hospital. And I will never forget in my life because my husband came with clothes from home that we may leave our child in the hospital, that I may go and do interview. Even when we are there at the interview room, we requested the interviewers to allow us to do the interview first so that we may go back to the hospital and take care of our last-born daughter. And that time I had that high hopes, like maybe I'm going all through this because God has a way for me out. Like this one is going to work. This time it has to work. And the anxiety, the waiting, the expression of the calling, of your call in the panel. And yes, you know you have been called, but the way you want, they want to hear this calling. It's not an easy thing to explain. But in fact, either white or black, you know that you have been called. But now expressing your calling to the interviewers, it was another challenging things in my life. So that interview, and the one I did so that I may now think, I thought that this was now the final one. And it was back in 2016. Yes, it was back in 2016. This time I had that high hopes anyway. Already I have the experience of the ministry. I've served in Naivasha, I've served at Rongere and Kehumo Parish, and now I'm serving by then I was serving as a youth coordinator at Nairobi North Gateway Parish. So I had these high expectation through prayers. And I remember I was waiting because I had prayed. I had consulted my mentors. I had also consulted God, and I was like, God, now this is my time. Oh, it has been a journey. And after, when I was done in the interview, in fact, in my heart, I thought, already I've done it. But that regret letter came and I saw it in my email. I will never forget. I cried and I prayed about it. Surely I was very down. And in fact, I called myself. I had a self-reflection. I had a meeting with myself. Like, I think you've not been called to be in the holy ministry. So to a point I was like, I'll continue pushing it. Yes, deep inside in my heart, I'm just feeling I need to push for it. But when it comes to expressing myself, I'm wondering, where did it go wrong? Then that is the time God gave me the Psalms 40 in my heart. How David waited patiently for the Lord. And personally, it is my psalm. I keep on telling my friends and also my family members, they know that I am one of those people who can talk about Psalms 40, waiting patiently. And it is not an easy thing to wait when you have a lot of full anxiety. And after praying and seeking the will of God, I went now for the interview that I went through. And that is back in 2018. And this time, I had purposed not to do that interview. In fact, I had said that I think I'm fed up with the interview. But one of the ministers called me and told me, do you know how many times I tried? Keep on trying, your time will come. And even though this is not your right time, you will also try again and again. And by then, the age, my years, my age, it comes a time where by age will not allow you to do this interview. But as long as you're in that bracket of doing interview, I encourage my heart in the Lord. So I remember this morning when I did my interview at parish level, I also did at presbytery level, now at national level. And this time I had prayed and asked God, if it is your will, may I go through. And sometimes even people may ask you, why haven't you gone through? Because already I was, there are some ministers that we were with in our college. So they knew that I had this passion as a private student. Now they were wondering, what is it? Why don't you go through? Why don't you make it in the interview? Why don't you even pass through this interview? And by the way, as a human being, you would like, oh, maybe, I don't know. But after praying, I went for this interview. I remember that early in the morning. I love my husband because he's my encourager every time, Rie. And he told me, believe it, this time God is going to make a way for you. And he kept on encouraging me. Maybe God was shaping you in the wilderness. God was calling you. God was God was equipping you for the work ahead of you. And when I went through that interview, I remember I got the result when we were planning about, we had a revival and evangelism in our parish. So in that meeting whereby we were in that evangelism, we were with the pastoral team planning on how the crusade and revival would be. So I got my email and I couldn't hold it. I was extremely happy. I started crying and telling God, God, you have remembered me. And that is the time I came to remember that at his appointed time, he shall make everything beautiful. And true to it, all along I've seen God in this journey. Though sometimes as a human being you may feel like giving up. You may feel like, is it true that you have been called? Are you sure you have been called? And sometimes you are like, you even feel that you may have a big burden in your heart. Why don't you go through? Why are you not making it? Why don't you like make it? But that time is when I felt that surely God, at your appointed time, you make everything beautiful. And surely God has beautified my life. That is a testimony.
The day happened, another challenge, because the day I was to be ordained, the presbytery, which the moderator was my trainer, organized for the dedication of the church. So the church was dedicated before I was ordained. Are you getting it? These are two major events and they are cramped together. Yeah? But I thank God it went on well. People were happy for me. People came for me, you know. My family came in large numbers. My friends came in large numbers. And so the celebration was good. Well, it was like, okay, now this is the real me. It has started. How is it going to be? Will I make it? You know those questions. Am I equal to the task? Where will I be posted? What will happen if I'm posted? All these questions were ringing in my mind. So it was tears of joy and tears of anxiety, because you don't know what is beyond. Now from here, what? I didn't know what next, and how to go about it, just to wait and see how it is going to be.
That morning, even that, when I was in the procession, was like, now the so long awaited time has come. And personally, I felt that God really loves me. Sometimes I was like, is it true? Is it happening? You're like, oh yeah, it is happening. And surely God is making it to happen. Like everything was unfolding well, without any delay or any obstacles. And that time when I knelt down and I was prayed for by the entire church, and it was time to be the time of wearing that gown, I was so much overwhelmed. I shed tears of joy, and tears of knowing that God has called me to minister to people, to give hope to the hopeless, no matter the situation. And that is something that I'll never forget in my life. And that ordination, to me, I keep on saying, it brought me closer, closer than the way I used to love God. In fact, it made me to have that inner, as in deep intimacy with God, knowing that it is not in vain to wait upon God, and knowing that the work that God is giving me, it was not an easy work. It is not an easy, but it is not easy burden. It is a very tough burden to carry. But knowing that you are serving God, He will always be with you. So the entire service, seeing all my friends, seeing all family friends, seeing people that we served together, people that we have prayed together, there is a reason that I can say it. I have a reason to thank God and to tell God thank you for that time of ordination, licensing, and also the journey in the ministry.
Whoa. When I got the call to tell me I'd passed the final interview, because there were several interviews, I won't tell you all the details. Initially, I thought I wouldn't go through. The interviews I went to, and I would look around, there were many people. And from the face value, no wonder the Lord in 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse says, people look at the outward appearance, but I, the Lord, look on the heart. I even went home telling my parents I saw very many qualified, smart, articulate people. And at one point in one of those interviews, I knew I wouldn't make it. Not that I couldn't, but knowing they were taking very few, you'd hear like the 1-2 people. And I was thinking, what are the chances I'm one of those 2 in this setup? Or in this one, you're told we are picking 1. What are the chances I'll be that one? In fact, most of the places they were taking 1. I think at the region level, they were taking 2. So at the congregation level, 1. At the parish level, 1. At the presbytery level, 1. So it was such a place where the interview process, you don't know whether the way you presented yourself and whether there'll be any bias again. But it's good to have God the Father as your Godfather, not depending on people, because I did not come in because I was well known. I did not come in because someone spoke on my behalf other than the Lord God. So when I heard I was in that list, I didn't know how to react. I was amazed, I was shocked, I was excited. That was the first day I saw some of the closest people to me shedding tears of joy. I just couldn't believe it. And our time, I think we were only 13 that whole year that were picked out of hundreds. So it was amazing. And I was like, Lord, my prayer had been, Lord, if this is not your will, don't let it be. So when it came to me, I was like, I think, Lord, in fact, I know you're confirming to me that this is your will. Therefore, as I go in, help me to serve as you would rather have me serve. So I don't know whether I have the right words to explain, like someone who wrote a song and said, Dear Lord, the English language has only 26 letters. To put together all I feel about you and to explain the magnitude of who you are is not possible with 26 letters. There was a song somewhere. So I can't tell. It was exciting. There was also the fear, Lord, will I fail you? But then I remembered, even the strength to serve is His. Should I make mistakes, I'll still be held by the Lord Almighty. I have a wristband that reminds me, Deuteronomy 32:39. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 39. That reminds me, the Lord says, I am He, there's no one like me. I am the one who kills and gives life. I wound and I heal, and nobody can take you out of my hand. So whether it is when I'm feeling the lowest of the low, whether it's when I'm at my mountaintop very excited, I have seen God. Even in this ordination, for me it was a first. Having the name Dawn, D-A-W-N, I've had a lot of fasts in my life. Before me, people did not think that many persons with disabilities could do many things. And even now there are challenges. And even as a minister, there are biases I face, honestly. But I have seen God in so many ways.
Come the year 2011, in March, I was licensed. My licensing happened at PCL Oresho, while my ordination came on 3rd of April 2011. That happened at Lavington United Church. That was a breakthrough. Because again, I was still the first one among the women, and especially self-sponsored, again to be ordained. I mean, that was amazing. And for me, it was a dream come true, because I told you the long journey from childhood all the way to my youth life, and trusting in God and doors not opening when you needed them to open, and finally getting the breakthrough and getting ordained. It's a feeling like no other. But again, it's so solemn, it's so solemn to see the calling that God has put in your heart, coming to fruition, and you being given the opportunity and the platform to serve and to do that which gives you fulfillment. It's just amazing. It's a feeling like no other.
It was a great moment for me. And what I can say is that I trained at PCA Nyadhuna Church in Ngecha Presbytery, but by the time I was joining there, it was Limuru Presbytery. It was a lovely journey whereby, we start with the licensing and again thereafter ordination. And I remember that very well because I had great support from the presbytery or rather maybe I start with the family, presbytery, and wherever else I had served. Before then I had served in different parishes like as an evangelist, so I had served in PCA Kariobangi South, I had served in PCA Bahati, and great support was extended to me. And so during my ordination, it's something I really cherish to remember.
I was excited because I have completed the college, but I was also kind of feeling a bit of hesitant and a bit of fear because of the ordination, because I knew that the ordination actually meant that I have surrendered my whole life and everything to God and to serving the church. After I completed the college, I was posted to Musa Gitau Parish, where I was trained by Reverend James Kahenya, and actually he encouraged me a lot, and he was able to help me overcome my fears and wait for the ordination, and trusting God that He will carry me through even in the years of service after ordination.
I was ordained I was licensed in September 1994, and I was ordained in December 1994. So my first posting was Chogoria institutions, Chogoria Presbytery institutions, that included Chogoria Boys High School, Chogoria Girls High School, Chogoria Bonding. Although that was the institutions that were like outlined when I was being given the job, I was able to interact with the other institutions that were Presbyterian in the presbytery. That was my first posting, where I stayed for 1 year.
In the year 2000, I got ordained. I was licensed on 30th of July 2000 and ordained 3rd September 2000. And women were still trying to break the ceiling. We weren't many, but the sisters who were ahead of me, they kept on encouraging me. I can remember a few of them. Can mention Dr. Nyambura Njoroge. I can mention Ruth Ngari. By the way, Ruth is from my parish. I also remember people like Mercy. She was ordained before me, and she really encouraged me to this ministry. And of course, Esther Degwa, my mentor, she trained me with Reverend Zipporah Jaga, and I'll forever be grateful to Esther. And I want to mention about the first parish when I was posted. When I got there, the people were very, very happy. They were excited, but that was Kinangop. They had not had a woman. North Kinangop had not had a woman ordained as a minister. And therefore, I remember some elders trying to show me kindness. They told me, Rev, now that you've come, we'll be taking you round so that we can explain to our parishioners that a woman has been posted. So I actually allowed them the first congregation. But after the first congregation, seeing how they were struggling, trying to convince the people it is a woman, I told them, now it is okay, thank you very much. Now you can allow me to visit the churches. But that doesn't mean they were arrogant. It was also a new thing in their parish.
It was a day that I still remember because there was a lot of support from Reverend Esther herself as the parish minister of that parish that we were serving with her, and then the support I get from the presbytery. The late Reverend Wainaina, he was the moderator then, and he really supported me. Then the ordination was really a moment that to me, I don't know which word to use, but it really now dawned on me that surely now you have gotten into the ministry. On one side, I was really happy that this has happened, and I had the support of even members of my family, the church, the home church. They came in great numbers to really witness this. But on the other side, you see now that how will it be? You know, so many questions in my mind. And now imagining after ordination that now I'll be left alone, no longer with Reverend Esther, to go to the first parish that I was posted in, and now I'm all by myself. And I kept on wondering, will I be able to do well like I have seen Reverend Esther doing? Will I really be able to push that parish to greater heights? So that was also, so I was one side excited, the other side I had that, you know, those little worries and fears of how will I really be able to do it on my own. But I thank God, because after posting, I have seen the hand of God. Even right from the first parish, I saw God even molding me, those people who surrounded me, other ministers that I worked with within that presbytery, they also molded me until I was able to really be able to do it on my own.
The most memorable moment where I was being ordained was when I saw the ministers, many ministers who had been encouraging me in ministry. And when the presbytery came, I realized that this was a very serious business. And so, one, I was excited, and I was also a bit fearful also.
I was posted to PCA Evergreen Parish. That was in the then Milimani Presbytery. That's where I did my practicals. I was licensed on the 25th of November 2012, and I was also ordained by the grace of God on the 9th December 2012. It was a joyous moment, but also equally overwhelming. I still remember I cried because I took time to reflect on the faithfulness of God, that He actually gave me an opportunity to serve as a young person, because I was young. I was in my 20s, so I was actually a young person. And you know, navigating through school life, you know, the challenges that young people go through, and finding myself in ministry, that was quite overwhelming. Then also the realization of the heavy assignment that God was placing on me, because calling in itself is challenging. It requires you to constantly, you know, listen to God, seek Him more, you know, even as you shepherd the flock that God has entrusted to you, to also take care of yourself. And that's a heavy assignment, yes.
Oh, it was on another level. I had waited, I got the call in 2009. I actually waited 9 years. No, it was 7 years, because I got ordained in 2017. I don't know how many years are those. I think it's about 8 years. So for me, it was a moment like of closing the Red Sea. It was like coming from that side. It looked so impossible. First, there was this narrative that being a private student, you would never be able to get to the mainstream ministry. But I was so sure that that's where the Lord had called me. So waiting for so long, you usually take a toll on somebody. Okay, you have faith, but you're like, you didn't ever get there. So the day you start with licensing. The day you get licensed, you're given a collar, and that is the time you feel like, wow, this is happening. Actually, it actually starts with the interview. Interviews are tough. Interviews in the Presbyterian Church are tough, and you've gone through so many people who have gone there and failed. So when you're sure now you're getting in and you're in and you're in, it is when you pass the interview. And I remember I had only gone for the first time, and people used to discourage me and tell me, bado, itabidi uende mara kadhaa. You're failing until one day you pass. People will tell you, we've been there for several times, we've won like 5, 4. It's your first time. Pass through. You will find us again, you pass through again. And I was like, God, please, I don't think I can do this. So when I went through the interview, it was quite tough. And I told God, if I don't pass this time, Lord, please, I am done. Because I can't go through that thing again. I can't go through the interview. Thank God. God is gracious. I passed the first time. And so when I got in, you are in, I would say, cloud 9. You are like, wow, this is it. This is where I would have wanted. This is it. This is the accumulation of the ministry. The ordination was awesome, the licensing, and it was on another level. I don't know whether I am explaining really right, but it is just that I lack words. Yeah, the ordination is something that makes somebody feel you have gotten what the Lord had told you. That is what I'm saying. It's like closing the Red Sea. It's like crossing the Red Sea, yeah.
Just to keep on encouraging my sisters in ordination. Let's soldier on. We are not alone. God is concerned with every step we make, and He will see us through.
A call is difficult. It's something you struggle with, you fight. Sometimes you don't want, and God wants you to serve and all this. People go, you know, lifting their hands, and they are dragged actually. Sometimes God has to drag you into it. So a calling is heavy, but God brings clarity and people to walk alongside you and to help you.
So I want to encourage whoever is feeling the call, let them join the ministry. Of course, there is a process that people go through, but whenever you don't suppress it, don't feel like you can't, Because of course you can't by your own, but with God's help, it is doable.
Take the responsibility of encouraging younger girls to be part of the church and not separate from the church. The church is a family unit, and the younger generation doesn't understand that soon they will be in a position that their elders are. And it's important that the younger generation be part of the older members of the church.
We are not celebrating ourselves. We are celebrating what God has done for the 40 years, that the door has been opened for us for 40 years. It may have taken so long for us to be many, but the few that we are, we need to celebrate that God has been on our side, and God has walked with us. Yeah, and also to celebrate what the church that has given us the chance to be there, to exercise the gifts that God has given us.
I call you faithful, 'cause your name is faithful. Faithful you are to me, and faithful you are, and faithful you'll be. I call you holy, 'cause your name is holy. Holy you are to me.